AWS training. So from today onwards, we'll discuss on identity and access management and why do we need these service. And this is one of the important service which is offered by Amazon Web Services. Okay, let's get started. What do you mean by identity and access management? Let's look at our AWS login page. So this will be the first page where we land in whenever we search for AWS or Amazon.com. Now, as you can see, we can see two users. One is a root user and another one is a IAM user. Root user is the one which has the highest priority and which has highest permission where he can create the resources and he can play around the resources as he needs. Whereas IAM users are the subsidiary users which will be creating under the root user. Whenever we log into our AWS account with the root user, we'll be able to see all the resources. For example, we can create a EC2 instances, we can perform route 53 actions, we can create a cloud formation template, and we can deploy our template. Everything it is possible with the root user. Coming to IAM user, by default, AWS will not provide any IAM user, which means we will have to create a IAM users, which means individual user accounts will be managed by us, not by AWS. So root user will be managed by AWS, IAM users should be managed by ourselves. Let's say we have a team of 10 members, right? And in real time, for all the 10 members in a team, we can't provide this root user access because all the 10 members will have access to all the services. This is not recommended. So in this case, what we will do, we will be creating a individual user account based on needs, right? For example, if out of 10 members, 4 members are part of dev team, okay? So these are all dev department we can call. And let's say we have a testing team, and similarly we have engineering team, okay? Look at the scenario here. So for development purpose, he doesn't need to have access to most of the EC2, I mean, most of the AWS services as we know. So if that is the case, what we can do, so as he's a developer, he might be interested in some services called EC2. So we'll create a user or we'll create some groups or we'll create some user and we'll assign the responsibility only to have the access to EC2 related services. I'm coming to QA. For example, they might need to interact with, I mean, to deal with some storage services. So probably they may need more on S3 services. So what I'll do, I'll just create a user or a group, and I'll just assign the responsibility of S3. I'll give access to S3 resources so that this particular team is responsible or this particular user is responsible to access these services. And engineering team, definitely we need to have more services to be assigned because they'll be interacting with development team and QA and many more teams as well. By considering that, what we can do, so let's say you might need Route 53, or you might need S3, or you might need EC2, you might need Cloud Formation. What else, right? So whatever we need. So based on those requirements, so we'll just create a user and we'll just assign these services, or sorry, we'll just assign these accesses, right? So that is how our IAM role works. So here IAM refers identity and access management. So we will just identify the user requirement and accordingly we'll just assign the access to the respective user. So that's the reason we call this as identity and access management. Okay, so let me just log into this AWS account with the root user and we'll try to create one user, and later we'll just get into some details. Okay, so let me log in with my credentials, uh, password as well. Okay, so this is my AWS console. And as we can see, so EC2 is a service which is available in our Amazon. So similar to EC2 and S3, we have something called as IAM, right? So just this is a search bar in the console. Select this option. This is Identity and Access Management Service, which is offered by Amazon. Once we see the dashboard of IAM service, here there will be some, okay, there are some already users have created, the earlier sessions have created, but let me delete them. It's getting deleted, yeah, just deleted. This is the default uh, screen of, I mean, this is the default dashboard of IAM services, which means I don't have any user groups, I don't have any user, but I have some roles and some policies, right? We will see one by one. And we have something called as multi-factor authentications. We'll also implement multi-factor authentication in our upcoming session. Okay. So now my primarily I'm focusing to create a user. So I want to show the difference between this root user to a IAM user or a normal user in Amazon. Okay. So for that, I'm just selecting this option user, and here I see option of add user. Let me click on this one. Okay. So here, by default, Amazon is allowing us to create 10 users at a time, right? But we can create, n number. There is no limit at all. We can create thousands of users, for this particular account. So this is the account ID. So as and when we create our AWS account, there will be a 12-digit account ID will be assigned to a particular account. So this will be your reference. So what are we trying to do here? We have a account, and this is the account, and for this account I logged in as a root user. Now under this root user, right? So probably I can just make this step, and he is the root. This, and let me consider this as a root user. Okay. Now under this root user, I'm trying to create a user. Probably I've just mentioned dev, QA, and engineering team. So for now, let me consider the same. So let me create a dev user, a QA user, and engineering team user. So I'll be creating three different users under root user. So in order to create these users, I need to log in to my AWS account with root user access. So that's what I've done here. I've just logged in with my root user, and if you can see, this is my uh, account ID. The purpose of creating these users, in the sense, we are just sharing this particular account across multiple users. This is one of the biggest benefits of having this service, right? So that I'll have the visibility on my account. For example, we have 10 different users in a team. Then if I'm just giving access to all the users or all the employees, all the team members, to log in as a root user, then I'll not have any visibility that who is doing what, right? Probably, fifth user, if he has deleted something, then I can see the results saying that so one of the root user has deleted this one. So which means I'll not have any identification or any kind of audit kind of log. This information will not be available if I'm allowing everyone to log in as a root user. So that is one of the reasons we will be creating a number of users by using the same account, so that I'll have a visibility. For example, If dev user is deleting something, then I will come to know, okay, this particular user has deleted this EC2 instance. And if somebody has created S3 bucket, okay, uh, probably QA user is having access to this one, so I will have a visibility. This person has created a S3 bucket. Or if something crashes uh, our environment, and if that is done by this engineering team with this user, then it is easily identified, and we can talk to the respective user, right? So this is one of the important way to create a user under root user. So root user will be given by Amazon, and under the root user, we will be creating multiple different users. These users are called IAM users. Why are we calling this as IAM users? Because we are just identifying a user, and accordingly, based on the requirement, I'm just assigning some access. Right? So that's the reason we call them as IAM users. Okay, fine. Now let me just try to create one user called dev, or probably let me try to rename for now. Let's say I'll start with Arun. He's from dev team, and John is from PA team, and Robert from engineering. Okay. So let me just make some changes here. So instead of creating a group, in the next session we will talk about groups and everything. Let us not get confused. For now, I'm just creating a user called Arun, and I'm just creating a user called John as well as Robert. So all the three will have different purpose. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, so let me create a user called Arun. Now we have two options. One is we can log into this account with the help of username called Arun with the help of the password. Right? So I have two password mechanisms. So one is the straight away I can even I AWS is facilitating to auto generate the password, or I can create my own customized password. And what is this second option? Access key programmatic access. So we'll be covering CLA part in our upcoming session. So probably at that point of time, this particular access should be enabled for this particular user. Okay. So we will discuss that when we learn command line interface, how to log in uh, our AWS account with access key ID and some secret access key. Right. So this will be generated by our Amazon itself. We will see that. So please understand, if you are trying to log in to AWS account with this user with the help of some programmatic access, which means with the help of some command line interface option, in that case, you must select this option. And if you are planning to have a customized password, like how we were logging to our AWS account with the root user, if that is the case, select this option, select this checkbox. Now, AWS is facilitating auto-generated password if you need, or if you want to have a customized password, you can always use that. Now, so let me keep it simple. I'll just say Arun at the rate 123. Okay. So I know so this password is also having some restrictions, which means if I just mention like Arun, it is not allowed because it has some statistics. I should meet this statistic. So now to that, I'll just say array 1. So this is fine. Okay, I must remember this one. All right. Now, this is the default facility or default access which I'm trying to give it to this particular user, which means by default, user called Arun will not have anything to do on AWS console until and unless I need to provide an access. As part of this one, right? This is the first facility, or this is the first access, or this is the first role or policy which I'm trying to assign to Arun. This is not mandatory at all. So it has just introduced, a year back. previously this facility or this no, set of instructions was not there. It was just introduced a year back. So what they are trying to introduce here in the sense, as and when we create a password, right? So see, users will not create a account, right? So someone or root user or some admin has to create a username and password. So in that case, let us give some freedom to create their own password as and when they log in with this user to this particular account. So by considering that, they have kept this option in the beginning itself. So just to get familiar, let me select this one so that as and when I log into this account, then I should be able to see the importance and the functioning of this particular policy. What is this policy? IAM user change password, which means he'll be able to change his password for the first time login. Okay, so this is the one policy which have attached here. Next, here we have three options. One is add users to group, which means if I have created some groups, something called as dev, QA, and engineering team, so in that case, I can just select a group. We will see in the next session, we will create the groups and assign users to the respective groups and everything we'll see. So as of now, I don't have any groups here, so I'm not able to use this option. Come to second option. What is this? If we have some users already created, you can just map that new user to the existing user, so that whatever the previous user had certain policies, the same policies can be applied here as well. But for now, I don't have any user already created. So let's go to third option. What it is saying, I have a couple of existing policies. If you would like to have that, please try to make use of it. Now, I'm creating a user called Arun, and let me try to give EC2, which means he can only perform, he can create, delete, he can modify anything on EC2 resources, but not on any other resources. If I'm allocating on EC2 access, then Arun will not be able to create any buckets, S3 buckets, or will not be able to create any cloud permission template. Let's look at it. Okay, so for now, I'm just giving EC2 full access. So in order to give, let me search like EC2. Let's scroll down. See, I'm selecting EC2 full access, which means he has got read write access, which means he can delete and he can create the option the resources however he wants. Instead of selecting this one, if I just select Amazon Easy to read only access, which means he can only see the instances which was created by someone else. He'll not be able to create by his own. Right? We will discuss that in our sessions. But just to have a clarity, I'm just giving a full access, which means you'll have all the necessary access to work on EC2. If you want to give some tags, you can give and click on review. Please note here, these are the two managed policies which I am allocating to this particular user called Arun. What is that? This is IAM user change password policy, which I have seen in the first screen itself. I want to make the user to change the password after he logs into this particular account with the help of this user. And later, Arun is from development team. So let me try to give access to EC2 only. So he should only play around EC2 resources, but not on any other resources. Okay. Now let me create a user. Once I create this user, okay. So let me just copy this one. I can open in this browser itself, but as I've logged in as a root user, I don't want to log out from this. So I'll just use another browser. I'll just use Firefox, and I'll just make use of this particular URL. Again, it will come back to the same. Okay. See, here by default, it is selecting my learning 2, but when we log in, when we sign in, it will show up our 12-digit account ID. If you want, you can change it here. Instead, you can just give your username. What is the username? It's Arun, and password is Arun@1. And let me click on sign in. As and when I sign in, right? See, this is the first, and this is the account ID, right? I was talking about. And whatever the screen I'm seeing, this is because of IAM change user password policy, which I have opted in the very first screen. Correct? Now it is asking me to change the password under this account name. So which means, see, this is the account name, right? This is the same account name, right? So it is ending with 1176. So I'm just creating another user to this particular account, and AWS will not charge any amount for the user creation. It is only charging for the resource usages. Okay, so that's the reason we can create a number of users based on our requirement. Now let me change my password. Add the one, 123 password. Okay, so let me click on confirm password change. Please look at here. Here we could see, instead of other AWS Naveen user, we could see Arun as a user, and this is the account name which we are mapping. We'll show how to map this account name to any of your customized names. We'll see that in our account section. Okay, this is the default screen we are seeing. I mean, this is the dashboard we are seeing for this particular account. And what did we assign a role here? We are assigned the role of EC2 full access, which means you can only work on EC2, not on any of the services. For example, here we have row 53. Let us see whether this particular user has access to this service. As per our recommendation, or as per our policy which we have assigned, it should not have access to this. See, look at here. So you'll not be able to perform anything on this service. So this is how we can restrict our user if the current user around is not authorized to perform this action. Okay, so this is how we can restrict our user so that it is kind of a secured way of handling our account. So we'll not have any confusion, we'll not have any problem with any other user who belongs to some other teams as well. With this, we'll have a clarity who is doing what, right? So when I see the results, or when I see the logs or kind of audit, Arun will only have access to EC2, so you cannot perform anything beyond it, right? So I'll have a clarity, right? All right. Now, as Route 53 is not working, so definitely I should be able to create a EC2 instance or whatever the related things I can do under this service. I'll be able to perform, right? So let us try to do that. So I'll just, just that Route 53 is not working here, but this particular option is available. Now, let me try to create one instance and see if I can create it or not. Because I've just assigned a EC2 full access. As per my thing, it should work. Let us see how it works. Now, so I'll just AMI my server, and let me select AMI. Okay, let's select the default one, Amazon Linux, and T2.micro. Let it select by default. Yeah, this is the default one. Let me select the key. I'm in North Virginia. Let me change to North Virginia. Okay. So let's select the group as default. That is, I don't care because I'm not talking to these machines. Just to show you that I will be able to create a EC2 instance with a user called Arun. Arun is only having access to EC2 full access. See, they are just created. Now, whatever the things we have created under Arun, are these resources are visible in for the root user? Yes, this is visible. We'll see that because the user called Arun has created under this root user only. So that is the reason we should be able to see the resources which is created by Arun or even for from some other users also. See, we can create. So which means we are not just hiding some resources. Instead, we are trying to minimize the access to the respective user. Okay. So now we are able to see that. Now let me try to create another user called John and let me try to assign a role called S3. Let's see how it works. All right. Now, I'm in a root user. Let me get into the section of IAM. Let me click on the option of users. I must be having one user already. Now, as per our discussions, so let me create another user called John. So as I mentioned, it's better to uh, enable both the options. In future, if you are working with these users, then we can also log into our account with the help of these options. And as of now, let me give a custom password. Uh, uh, wait one second. And again, if you wish to select this one, you can go ahead. This at this point of time, I am not giving this option just to have a clarity. I'm just trying to compare with the previous user. For the first user called Arun, we had selected this one, and let's see what will happen if I don't select this one. Now let me click on this option. Now as I have not created any groups, I can't use this option. Now, copy permission from existing user. I must be able to see one user. So if I have to map with this user, I can always do that. But I'm interested in to assign some other access. So that's the reason I'm just selecting the third option again. Now, let me select S3. See here, again, I'm selecting Amazon S3 full access, which means John is a user. He should only play around S3 bucket. Okay. Now click on tags and click on preview. See, at this point of time, we are only having S3 full access. We are not having a policy of changing the password. We are just creating a user. Now, this particular user has created. Now, what I'll do, I'll just copy this one and I'll just use the same browser. Let's see what will happen. Now, what is the username? John, whatever the password I have given while creating this thing. Uh, I should be able to use the same password. So here it did not ask me to change the password because this particular policy was not assigned. So which means please understand by default IAM users will not have any access to the services. It is our responsibility that while creating a particular user, it should allocate the necessary roles. Now, as we know, John is having access to S3, not to EC2, right? So let me try to click on EC2 section and let's see what will happen. Definitely, we should not have access to EC2 dashboard setup, right? Let's see. See, we are not having access because we had assigned a role of S3 only. Let me click on S3. Okay. He is having access where he can create the buckets as well, right? Now, let me try to create a bucket in the root users. Let's see what will happen. So similar way, right? See, I'm just going with a different option. Previously, I had created a user called Arun, and from the Arun user, I created a EC2 instance, and that particular instance is visible in root user. Now, I'm trying to create a I'm trying to create a S3 bucket with the help of root user, and one should be able to see the details, right? That's the agenda. All right. Now, let me click on S3 and let me create a bucket. Okay. And see, please remember, I'm a root user. My bucket and as we know, the bucket name should be unique. And I'll just enable SQL and can play around with the restrictions. That I think we had a detailed discussion on all these options, right, when we are discussing on S3. So please refer back that video and yeah, click on create bucket. See, my new bucket got created. I've created in root user. Now let me go back and just refresh whether I'll be able to see this bucket. Yes, it is visible. See, this is the user called John, but we will not be able to see. Okay, as I'm using the same browser, I'm getting this option, and definitely user called Arun will not have access to S3 that we have already discussed. Yeah. So this is what I know I would like to discuss on this IAM part. So what we have done, we have by default we logged in as a root user, and we created two users called Arun and John. Arun we have assigned EC2, so it should have only access to EC2, and for John we have assigned S3. It should only work with S3. It is possible to add additional roles and additional access. Those things we will discuss in our upcoming sessions. So let's look at some points here. So basically, IAM, which will enable us to manage access to AWS resources and securely, right? So in this way, we'll have a visibility on the user, on their work, what and all they are doing, right? So similarly, whatever the account, right? So we the next session we'll create a groups and we'll create a groups, different groups, and single user can be assigned to multiple groups as well. We will see what is groups and everything. And coming to IAM features, as I mentioned, it has a shared access to AWS account, which means we are purchasing or we are creating the AWS account, and we are creating multiple users to this particular account, so that we can create multiple users under the same account. So same account will be used by all the users. And we have a facility of multi-factor authentication. It is after entering username and password. Again, we can use a mobile and we can get one-time password. So this is the additional kind of a security which we have, and we will be implementing this multi-factor authentication in our upcoming session. And identity federation. So as I mentioned, if user is already authenticated, like Active Directory of even if he has logged in with user with the help of Facebook or Google, so that can also be incorporated here. And there is no restriction, there is no additional charges for IAM security, so we can create a number of users. And we'll also discuss about password policies and permissions in our upcoming session. Let's look at some important terms. Coming to IAM, we have some important terms, ideology here that we have user, group, role, and permission. So as discussed, individual users will be creating under root account are called IAM user. So by default, they'll not have any permissions. So it's our responsibility to give access to the AWS resources. Okay. Now, what if we have, as I mentioned, this is the case. Here, four members belong to dev team and four members belong to QA and two are from engineering team. In that case, it is not best practice to create an individual user separately. Instead, I can create a group called dev, QA, and engineering team, and I can assign our respective users to the respective group. So that is the importance of having the group. We will discuss that in our session. And similarly, after creation of a group or after creation of a while creating a user, we can we can assign some roles and we can also assign some permissions. Permissions in the sense we can restrict a particular user called Arun. It can only create the EC2 instance but not to delete. Right? So these kind of permissions also we can give as part of IAM roles. Right? Okay. Now coming to root user. So root credentials are the email address and whatever the password we log into our AWS account, and the root users will have full unrestricted access to AWS account, which means uh, there is no limitations on the root user. Root user can perform any kind of operations as per our AWS, right? And coming to IAM user represents the person or service who uses the access to interact with the AWS. It means if I have 10 team members, then I should create 10 different users. So each different user is called as IAM user. And each IAM user is associated with one and only one account, which means I have created a user called Arun. I have created a yeah, let me look at it. Okay. Let's say I have a John user here, and this particular John should be entitled to this account only. So which means the user can't be shared across accounts. Okay. And IAM user cannot be renamed from AWS Management Console, but it can be done with the help of CLA option. We will see how to do that when we are learning CLA option. And I've just listed down some options here. Just follow these options, getting these details as well. Okay. So in this session, we just discussed about what is IAM and what exactly how to create a user and how it works. How we have created different users, and afterwards we have created uh, instances, and also we created some S3 bucket based on the roles which we have assigned. Right. So in our next session, we'll discuss about password policies, and also we'll create a group, and we'll create multiple users, and different groups can be attached to a particular user. So these things we will discuss in our upcoming.